What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar, as we just had Jerome Powell give a very important speech, and what he said is affecting the market right now. I'm also going to talk about PPI data coming out for tomorrow, what's going on with other factors involved in the markets, and what you should be watching for the charts for Bitcoin, Tesla, SPY, and all these other tickers. But before I begin the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you guarantee 20 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, in just about 1 week from now. Anyways, for the markets, we got a monstrous pump after CPI data came out. Looking at CPI, everything came in aligned with expectations, if not below them. Core CPI month over month was at 0.2% below expectations. Core year over year was at 3.4%. Month over month inflation for all items was at 0%. And then inflation for all items year over year was at 3.3%. Everything was below expectations right over here, which was why the market ended up pumping very hard in the morning. So the market pumped and pumped and pumped, continuing to push and push throughout the day, holding these new all-time highs. We saw Tesla starting to push. We saw SPY break into the 544 area, which is what I predicted would happen if we got a decent report. I even called 544 as a top in my video from the morning. So far that ended up playing out very well. Same thing with the QQQ. We actually continued to push all the way up towards very close to 477. So very, very nice move by the QQQ as well. Tesla also started to bounce finally. After getting a bit of a sell-off yesterday, we actually saw a nice little rebound on Tesla, which is nice to see. But then we had Jerome Powell start to give a speech, and he said something very important. So when it comes to interest rates, right now, we had a 5.5% maintained target, at least for now. That basically tells us that the Fed has kept rates the same. They're not really adjusting anything for now. And that's what they basically told us earlier, that they still have to wait for a lot more data. But with the economic projections reports, unfortunately, things are not looking as great because of the fact that before the Fed was projecting more cuts for the year, at least 2 or 3 of them. Now the Fed is projecting only 1 cut, and that's actually a big shift compared to before. So that's the reason why we actually saw this big shift. When Jerome Powell started speaking, he said a lot of very important things. He explained why the central banks are not ready to cut. So basically, the data was good, and he even admitted that. The data that came out was good. It was good to see inflation coming in line with expectations. And he admitted that there is a lot of progress being made. Once again, guys, I'm not saying that I trust every single piece of data. I'm not trying to say that inflation is dropping like a rock or anything like that. But I just want to say that based off the data that's being presented to us as traders, as investors, and such, right now it is once again aligned with expectations, and it's what Jerome Powell and the Fed were looking for. However, despite the fact that we got a decent CPI, you guys can see we have a little downtrend right here for CPI. The May data came out and it's continuing to maintain this downtrend. Despite that, things are still shifting a bit for the Fed's perspective. So the Fed says that despite the fact that we got this decent CPI report, the Fed is not necessarily ready to just start cutting rates just like that. They have to maintain restrictive policy for a longer period of time, possibly longer than what they were expecting initially. And now they actually have a different stance on the projected targets. So they're going to likely project only about 1 cut this year for now. When Jerome Powell was asked about can their view change depending on what we get, Powell didn't really comment on that. He said that they have to take this 1 month at a time and give it as much time as possible. So the Fed is not comfortable with cutting rates yet. They're saying that the data, once again, is showing progress, but inflation is not what they want it to be to really start doing that. And they need a lot more consecutive good pieces of data to do that for them to be more confident in their move. But for now, we're just waiting to see. Right now, there's still a 91.7% chance the Fed is going to once again keep rates the same during the July meeting. And going into the September one, that's when the market's expecting the Fed to do their first cut as of right now. We will see if that ends up being the case. But for now, we're just going to be very, very patient, depending on how things end up going. Jerome Powell also talked about the fact that he does not have a definitive answer onto why Americans view the economy so negatively. He was very ambiguous for most of the time, but a little bit more on the hawkish side. He did mention, excuse me, that the Fed cannot become too complacent. The recent jobs data may be a bit overstated. He mentioned that right now, with all the progress that's being made, it's not necessarily enough for them to start cutting. No one in the Fed committee has their base case for rate hikes, so they're not really planning on raising rates. But right now, they have to once again continue to monitor the situation before getting ready for those cuts. And besides that, he didn't really give any straight answers. Jerome Powell was just trying to be very, very quiet and closed. The Fed does not have the confidence yet to lower rates. Kind of repeated this many, many times, and they need more good data on inflation for them to continue to do so. So they have to continue to monitor the situation, wait, and give it some time. Unfortunately, what's not so good for the markets is the fact that the Fed may have to keep rates for higher than what the market was expecting. But we will see how things go from here. As of right now, the market is still at neutral in terms of the fear and greed index. We're not even at greed just yet. We also have market momentum being extremely greedy, as greed is making up the majority of sentiment. And we also have the puts and call option positioning at extreme greed. It's kind of dipping a little bit more as we're starting to see a lot of these puts being closed. Last time it came to this level, we did see a big bounce, though, because we started to see the market reject. We're not there yet. We're getting very close. And also, market volatility is quite neutral. So, what do I see for the trust? What do I see for the markets? As of right now, guys, the market's holding up quite well. SPY is still above 540. If we lose 540, then yes, there's going to be a risk of this dipping down to fill the gap. There's a gap on SPY all the way down towards the daily charts, uh, uh, 537 area basically on SPY. I think we will eventually fill this gap, but we have to wait and see if we get one more pop or not, depending on PPI data. So going into tomorrow, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Tomorrow is going to be Thursday, June 13th, 2024, 1 hour before the market opens. Okay. We have some more data coming out. We have PPI data coming out. Considering the fact that CPI came in line with expectations, hopefully we see PPI favor and follow the trend. And then we have initial jobless claims as well. But PPI is going to be more important. PPI is wholesale inflation from the producer side. And we'll have to wait and see if we get some decent numbers. My guts tells me the numbers will be decent. So this might actually help the market pop a bit in the morning. But then we'll see if the move can last. So for SPY, my analysis is very simple. If we lose 540, we're going to likely come down to fill the gap to 537. If we break the all-time high again at 544, we're going to be pushing all the way up to about 545 plus. Otherwise, we're just range bound if we're just stuck within these levels between 540 and 544. In my personal opinion, tomorrow there's a good chance we might pop a little bit during the pre-market thanks to the PPI report. Then we might see a little bit of a drop and just lots of sideways price action. If we lose that 540 area, though, we could see a little dip, but this depends on the PPI report and what else comes out with the initial jobless claims. But for now, guys, I think the most likely possibility is a little pop and a drop and some sideways price action, some consolidation. If we lose the key support, then look for a little dip towards 537 if we lose 540. But that, once again, depends on the data. As far as Jerome Powell's words go, they didn't really pump the market extremely hard. The market kind of dipped a bit thanks to Powell. So just be a little bit careful. For Nvidia, the daily chart is still looking more bullish. And then also when we look at, let me just double check this, the 4-hour time frame, we're still on a very, very nice uptrend right now. Now, there is a triple bearish divergence, but there's no sign of us breaking down yet. So I'll be looking for a push towards the 127.5 area, and we have support all the way down towards 125. If we lose, I'll be looking for a dip down to 121.5. My guts tells me we might see a little pop again thanks to PPI. Go a little higher towards 127.5, then we could get a little rejection off one of those levels. And we might see a little move back down towards our 20 EMA, in my personal opinion. So I think we'll be looking for a 127.5 to be tested or very close to that area. Then maybe a little rejection and move back down towards 125, and then some sideways price action. For Bitcoin, in my personal opinion, is looking like it wants to push a little bit right here. Going to be looking for a test of our 50 EMA at 68,800. If that breaks, well, we could get close to 70,000. Then we could make a move back down after that. The trend on Bitcoin is actually a little bit more bearish because we have a double top right here, and we're continuing to make lower highs. So we could pop and drop on Bitcoin, similar to the overall market, in my personal opinion. Tesla is very special, however. One thing worth noting is that we could be forming a nice structure here, considering that Tesla has a nice inverse head and shoulders that's developing, and we're back within our range. So watch 180 is key resistance, 182 and 185. If we break that, we're bullish. We could be pushing for the 200s. If we end up losing 175, we'll be dipping back down to 173 and lower. But overall, Tesla is showing some strength on the 4-hour. Tesla has the shareholder vote coming up, so it might outperform the market just like how it did today. And we might be looking for a little retest of 175, then a continuation higher back into the 180 to 182 area. So I think Tesla could push higher to 182, if not try to break past 180. I say that because we have the big shareholder vote. There's going to be a lot of hype involving that. So watch and see if we get good volume. And I think that there might be more buyers stepping in to help Tesla push to these higher levels. So I think Tesla's going to see some upside, a little dip, and then a bounce, and it's going to attempt to push higher is the most likely possibility. There's going to be a lot of excitement with the shareholder votes, so we'll see how things go. The QQQ is looking bullish so far. It's still breaking out, still holding up very nicely. No sign of this breaking down yet. If this continues to push up higher, I'll be watching 477.5, to 478. If that breaks, we'll get very, very close to 480 on the triple Q. But just be a little bit careful because this is just getting fueled by like Apple and the others out there. If we lose support at 474, there's going to be a risk of this dipping all the way down towards 472.5, eventually 470 again. The chart looks more bullish though, might go a little higher towards 477.5, might pop thanks to PPI, but watch to see if we get a rejection close to 478 and just continue to consolidate. I'll be watching for that as a strong possibility, but a little bit more upside looks probable. For Apple, we're actually holding up very well on Apple. But if we lose 212.5, I'll be looking for a pushback down towards 210, then 207. If we have resistance right here at 215, if we break this, we're going up to 217.5 all over again, then 220. Now, Apple got a little rejection right over here, so it could pop and establish a lower high. If we fail to break past 220, we could establish a lower high and start declining just a bit and make our way down slowly, back down to 207. So there might be a little decline on Apple just temporarily because of how much it pumped in such a short period of time. That seems very probable, and that might actually slow the markets down just a bit. So watch for that very carefully, a little pop and then a drop on Apple. That seems like the most likely possibility. But watch support at this 212.5 area. If we lose that, watch for 212, then I'm sorry, 210 and then 207. So far, so good. NEO has an inverted cup and handle like structure. Looks more bearish. We have a gap to fill all the way down to the low fours. So I do anticipate some more downside. Might pop a bit, then eventually come down to the low fours, 4.2. That's a potential target. Anyways, that is it for the main five, guys. Now let's just focus on many of the other tickers. I'm going to go into less detail and just be a little bit quicker. So for Palantir, this did push higher exactly as you predicted. But like I said in my earlier video, it has to try to hold above 23.8. If we lose this, we'll be dipping down to 23.3. If that fills, this 22.64 is coming. If we break out, watch 24.5 as resistance. If that breaks, I see this going all the way up to about 25. The trend on Palantir is a little bullish, but looking at the way it kind of rejected right here, there might be a little dip coming towards 23.5 or a little bit lower before it tries to bounce again. So look for a little dip before anything else. For Supermicro, we're kind of range bound right now. We have this 800 areas resistance, and we have support all the way down here around 766. To me, it kind of looks range bound, going back and forth and back and forth. So I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of pop a bit, then just continue to trade sideways. Look for a test of 800, then move back down, and just more sideways price action. But that's all I'm seeing, at least for the time being. A little pop and drop. Sideways price action looks very, very probable. For Rivian kind of popped, then dropped down towards the end of the day, closing in the red, which is not the best of signs. The overall trend is bullish on Rivian, but for the short term, I do see a little decline coming towards 11.6 to 11.5. So look for a little pop and a drop all the way down to 11.5, and then we'll see how it reacts from there. For SoFi, we kind of popped very, very nicely, going all the way up to about 7.4. Then we came back down. Now we're just trading sideways around 7. But just know, guys, with this big little liquidity grab, I wouldn't be surprised if we actually dip down lower towards $7 again. I think it's going to retest its 20 EMA. So that seems very probable in my personal opinion. So I'll be watching for a test of that area. For the IWM Russell 2000, we actually popped and dropped as well. I'll be looking for a test of 202.9 tomorrow to 202s. If we bounce off that, we'll be pushing back up to 205. If we lose 202, we'll be dipping back down lower. So look for a little dip tomorrow morning. Maybe it pops and drops depending on PPI, but I do see a little dip coming. And then watch and see, do we lose 202 to turn bearish or do we hold it? I think it's going to test that for tomorrow. For AMD, AMD is trying to rebound, but it does have a bearish structure overall. Now, we haven't officially lost key support. If we close below 158, I'll be looking for a dip all the way down to lower levels like 155 and 153. If we break past 163, I think that we could easily start pushing up to fill this gap. My gut is telling me this might try to push a little higher, might try to retest 162 to 163, depending on the EMAs it tests, and then look for a little pop and see if you get a rejection or not. If you get the rejection, it doesn't matter much until we see how it reacts to 158. If you lose 158, we turn bearish, so keep that in the back of your mind. But tomorrow, look for a little push on AMD. I think it's going to go a little higher towards 162 and see if we get a rejection or not. If it gets the rejection, we're going to turn bearish. If not, it is what it is. ARM is continuing to squeeze. We got a crazy move to the upside today after bullish news came out. I think it's going to be trying to test this top. We could be looking for a push all the way up to about 160 to 164. And look for a rejection after that. So look for a little bit more upside towards 160 to 164. And I think we might see a little move back down after that to cool off all the different indicators. For Coinbase, I just want to call out something very important. Coinbase is also trying to push nicely. We have a 4-hour improvements right now. Look for a test of this 260 area, excuse me. If we end up losing 253.5, we could dip all the way back down to 250. But I favor it's going to pop a little bit higher towards 260 and see if we get a rejection from there or not. But I see there's a very good chance we could be testing those areas. For Amazon, we're looking a little bit weaker on the 4-hour time frame, but I don't think Amazon's going to just dump. I think it's just starting to consolidate now. So we have resistance around 188, and we have support currently at 185.5. Whichever way we break will determine what the bigger move is. If we break 188, we'll be looking for 190. If we lose 185.5, we'll be dipping all the way down to 183.6. I think it's just going to consolidate a bit. It does look like it might dip a little bit, retest 185 and just trade sideways. So I see sideways price action, maybe a little dip as a strong possibility. For Meta, we have a bearish divergence developing on the charts. It's actually turning a little bit on the 4-hour. It depends if we could hold 505. I think it's going to test 505 tomorrow. If we lose that, we'll be dipping back down to 500. If we hold this, we'll be rebounded towards 510, but I favor a little dip as a stronger possibility. For Microsoft, we're looking more bullish so far. We're actually breaking out like crazy. I'm going to be looking at a test of the high right here. It looks very strong. There's no sign of major weakness. I think we could get very close to about 444. Maybe the PPI report pops a little higher, but watch and see where we end up forming a top. And I'd still be careful because of how much it kind of like pumped in such a short period of time. So watch the resistance around 444. If we lose 440, I'll be looking for a dip all the way down towards 438. I do think it might pop a little higher, but then there's going to be a risk of it kind of rejecting since we have tough resistance coming up. So be careful. It's new territory. It hasn't tested that before. Google popped and dropped, looking a little bit bearish right now. Look at 180 as resistance. If we lose support at 178, we'll be dipping all the way down to 177.5, then 176.5. I am seeing a nice probability of a little pop and drop or a drop from here back down to 177.5. That is the strongest possibility. For GameStop's looking kind of weak right now, but we're trying to base at 25. We have to hold 25 to get back up to about 29.8. If we lose 25, I'll be looking at 22. So let's hope we hold 25. My guts tells me we're going to see some sideways price action to 25s, then an attempt to rebound back up to at least 29. But we have to try to hold support. AMC, on the other hand, is looking kind of weak as well. We have to try to hold 4.9 when we get back above it. If we fail to do so, we'll be looking for a dip back down to 4.68. So we got to hold 4.91. We got to do it on AMC, otherwise we're going to dip lower. For DJT, we came back just a little bit. I'm going to be looking for a test of about 42.5 tomorrow, but then we'll see if we get a rejection off that or not, but look for a little push. For the VIX, we're dipping towards 12 right now. Could dip a little bit lower, but just know the VIX does have to bounce off this 11.5 to 12 area within a couple of days. So for the VIX, it looks bearish right now. There's no sign of really a bounce just yet. We're at support. So if we get a bounce off 12, we'll be looking for a retest of about 12.5. If we lose 12, we'll be dipping all the way down to the imbalance at 11.5. So watch 12 very carefully. The 10-year Treasury yield kind of dipped a little bit. We'll have to see if we get a rebound or not, but it's still down after the FOMC meeting. This is still bullish for the markets for now, but we'll see if we get some kind of counter move to our 200 EMA or not. If we break past 4.3, watch for 4.38. As of right now, it's still on a bit of a downtrend, so it still favors kind of like bulls for the market. The dollar index is also, it came down quite a bit now. It's trying to rebound. We got to get back above 104.8 to turn back to bullish. If we fail to do so, it could continue to reject. It is looking like it's trying to rebound a bit, but we'll see if it rejects or not. So that's going to be key for how we end up moving. With that being said, thank you all so much for listening. The market could pop a bit more thanks to PPI tomorrow, but just know we're approaching some tough resistance. The daily chart on SPY has a gap to fill below, so I'll be a little bit careful with the way I trade this. And we'll have to give this some time if we're going to continue to do what we do best. So that being said, guys, we'll be watching to see if we end up losing support. If we lose 540, I will turn more bearish. We haven't done that yet, so give it the time it needs. But with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. And I will see you guys very soon tomorrow before the market opens to report how PPI goes. So don't forget, guys, tomorrow morning we have PPI and initial jobless claims an hour before the market opens, and we'll see how things end up looking for us moving forward. But with that being said, the market's still, very, very strong. I'm going to still say that. Whether we get a small dip or not, we're still very strong overall. And the market is once again in a very, very nuanced position because of what Jerome Powell has said. He was a little bit more hawkish. So we'll see if the dip comes or not. I do think we could pop first and then consolidate. Hopefully we don't lose key support. If we do, then yes, be on the lookout for that. But that's what I'm saying, a little pop and drop and sideways price action. And we'll see if we end up eventually losing support or not. Tesla's also going to be a big, I would say like a big stock to watch for tomorrow because we have so many interesting pieces of news coming out for it, not to mention the shareholder vote. All right, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening, guys. I'll see you guys very soon, and peace out.